Hi, this is Paul Palmer. Today I want to talk about regulatory compliance. So that's not part of the regulatory affairs team and it's not part of the quality assurance team. Regulatory compliance in the pharmaceutical industry is really an activity. Sometimes you do get a department with the name, but really it's about ensuring that the systems and processes you have in place and the activity that you do, the records you generate, the work that's going on, meets the regulatory requirements. Now, for me, it's quite straightforward, but for somebody outside of the field without the experience, it can be something that's oversimplified, and people don't realize the impact of the, I suppose, level of work that's required to ensure that you maintain compliance. So let me give you an example. So you start off, you've got your quality management system. Okay, so maybe it's an ISO quality management system, and it meets the requirements of GMP. Well, does it? Well, you don't know yet because your GMP covers more than just the quality management system. The quality management system is just part of quality management. Okay, so we've got a QMS and we're working to it. So now, how do we know whether we've got compliance? Well, we've got activities going on and we've got records being generated and data. So now do we know we've got regulatory compliance? Well, if we go and we audit and we just look at that data, no, we don't, not yet. So then we look at what our products are, and we've got licenses for the products. So the licenses have been registered with the regulatory, um, uh, the government agency. I'm trying to make this simple, so rather than using the technical terms. So you have a government agency that does your inspections, and you think, well, they've registered the license, so maybe we're all right now. Well, how do you know? You've got your license, which gives you a release spec, and it gives you a shelf life spec. So you must have done some stability data. Well, the stability data, is that based on the current spec that you're manufacturing to? Is it got the correct packaging that you're manufacturing with? Is it got the same spec for those materials that you're using as it did when you did the stability work and the testing? Okay, so that's another aspect. Now then, what about those suppliers? Have you got oversight of the suppliers to ensure they're maintaining compliance with what your expectations were when you first engaged them? In fact, have you got your audits for when you did first do your due diligence before you set them up? So are we there now? Well, actually, no. We haven't even looked at the current status of the regulations. We haven't looked at the current pharmacopoeia. We haven't looked, well, do we sell it to a wider audience? Do we sell the product overseas? And now there are different additional regulations that we want to comply with. Okay, so we've got a little bit more we need to look at. So if I'm looking at regulatory compliance and somebody asks me, oh, you can come in and you can just give us your QMS off the shelf. Okay, I'll give you the QMS off the shelf. Is that enough to get the license? No. Well, why do people ask me to get a cheap QMS off the shelf to get the license? Because they don't understand. They're going into the business as a trader and they think, well, maybe you can just give me a simple one for cheap, a couple of grand, and we'll just get the license and we'll start doing the work. Yeah, but it's not the same as when you're just doing wholesale trade, is it? You need to understand regulatory compliance. You need to understand where your product's coming from, where it's going to, if there's any specific requirements for that specific type of product. And then what's next? Well, we need to make sure that we're meeting the other regulatory requirements, the other regulations, the other guidelines, the other current best practices. So have we got there yet? Are we compliant? Well, we don't actually know, because one of the requirements of regulatory compliance is that you have your self-inspection program and that you're carrying out your self-inspections and you're generating the data, and maybe that's showing you that you've got observations that you need to address. And you put a CAPA in place. What's a CAPA? Corrective action, preventive action. So something to do now, something to do longer term. But maybe you need to look at the wider scope as well if you've got actions to take. Have they been done? And what about on a daily basis? When the people come in, are their security rights correct? Are they ensuring that they've got the current best approach, the meeting the minimum requirements for user ID and password? Probably a complexity of at least 8 characters with capital, lowercase, number, special character. Okay, different people set different things. Have we met the GAMP requirements, GAMP 5 for the computer systems that we're using, if there are any? I think it's really unlikely these days that you'll have a site that's not got some sort of computerized system. That's not a computer, that's a computerized system. It's very different. So do the computerized systems that are on site meet the current regulatory expectations? That's part of regulatory compliance. So hopefully now, with this level of detail, you're starting to understand that there's more to regulatory compliance than a simple audit, than a simple quality management system being put in place. You want to look at the overall business. And that's what I really enjoy. I really enjoy helping people assess the current status of their regulatory compliance. But not just regulatory compliance, the business aspects of regulatory compliance. How does that meet the requirements of the business? And aligning the two. Aligning the regulatory compliance requirements with the business requirements. So what's the business requirements? Well, we want to know who we're buying from. Want to know what we're going to do with it once we get it. Want to know how we're going to get it here. And then, of course, we're going to know how we're going to store it, hold it, what activities we need to do while we're holding it, and then who we're going to sell it to, how we're going to receive an order, how we're going to make sure that they're right for the order. But is that just a regulatory requirement? No, it's not. It's a business requirement. So have we done the appropriate level of due diligence for our potential customers from a business perspective, not just from a regulatory compliance perspective? And then when we have, can we ship the products and can we collect the money? Maybe we can, maybe we can't. Maybe there's an issue there. Okay, so those business requirements actually seem like they align quite well with the regulatory requirements. So put your business requirements into your pharmaceutical quality system. So then when you align the two and they work together, you go from the beginning to the end. You get your product, you ship it, and you make money. But also you're making money in a compliant way. So what does that mean? Well, it's a compliant way because you've verified beforehand, you've assured compliance. Okay, so regulatory affairs is not regulatory assurance. So we're looking to make sure that we meet the regulatory requirements. We're looking to make sure we meet the business requirements. But we have other stakeholders as well. We have the employees, we have the owners, we have the license holder. There's so many different aspects to regulatory compliance, and I believe that's why I find it really interesting. The complexity, to me, I know for some people they don't like complexity. They just want to go in, do the job, come out. That's not me. I enjoy mapping the business process, mapping the compliance process, align the two, make them into one, and make sure your pharmaceutical quality system or quality management system meets the requirements of the stakeholders. And then we know we have regulatory compliance, and we look forward to the next audit from the regulatory inspectors. I hope that all makes sense. And if you do have any questions, of course, you can send me a direct message or you can put a comment underneath. I do read the comments, unlike some people who don't. And I'll respond direct to you or I'll respond in the comments if it's appropriate. And if you'd like some help with your compliance, not financial, regulatory compliance, but also support with your business. If you need some support moving it from where you are to where you want to be, I'm happy to help. Of course, I will charge. That's Paul Palmer. I'll talk to you soon.